The Mesopotamians were the first astronomers to make long-term written records, most of which were lost or destroyed. They had built observations in 4000 BC and called them ziggurats. They were also the timekeepers and had come up with the 8 zodiac signs we use today. They had observed also what they called celestial bodies. Roughly around 4000 BC, Egyptian astronomers came up with the calendar so they could predict the Nile floods. They had also built the Great Pyramids and their monuments in respect to the cardinal points.
The Chinese people had recorded and observed eclipses around 1300 BC. They had also recorded meteor showers, guest stars, and comets. They also came up with their own zodiac called the Yellow Path to guide people through life.
Thales was a merchant born between the years 624 and 547 BC. It was said that he traveled to Egypt to gather knowledge. He learned how tall a pyramid was by its shadow, but the most famous part of it was that he predicted a total eclipse.
Gregory was an astronomer born in 582 BC and died 500 BC. He and his students created a scientific model showing how the celestial bodies moved and looked. He also adopted the spiral Earth theory and was the first to say that Earth was a spiral. The Babylonians was a culture from 500 BC that had used the records and observations to find patterns and regularities in the motion of the moon and planets. With this, they found that each planet is in an synodic period. They had also created many archives about the stars, planets, and omens. Aristotle was born 384 BC and died 322 BC. He accepted the model of Exodus, but included more concrete spheres. He also came up with different proofs that the Earth is a sphere and in fact it's made of 4 elements, and he's also the founder of formal logic. Aristotle's Samos was a man that lived between 310 to 230 BC. He's shown that geometry can be used in astronomy, but it can find the distance to the moon and relative distance and the size of the sun. He also found the size of the moon by a lunar eclipse. Aristophanes was born in 276 BC to 195 BC and was the director of the Great Library of Alexandria. He had measured the earth by using geometry. His assistant recorded the sun's shadow in Egypt, and Anthony recorded the sun's shadow from Alexandria and used that to find the size of the earth. Hipparchus was a Greek astronomer born in 190 BC and died 120 BC. In 134 BC, he discovered a new star that could be seen with the naked eye. He also made an astronomical calendar that had been lost. Mesoamericans, or Mayans, was a culture around 15th and the 16th centuries. These people had come up with a complex calendar not to only track the sun and moon, but also track the setting and rising of Venus. They had built buildings that aligned with the sunrise and sunset at the equinoxes and solstices.
Ptolemy, who was born in 100 AD and died in 170 AD, wrote a book about celestial bodies. He argued that the Earth was at the center of everything while everything else orbits around it, while the sky moved. Ptolemy also recorded the longitudes and latitudes on a world map.
Arabics and the Muslims during 476 AD through 1500 AD made space-based discoveries. Astronomers such as Ulugh Beg based their research off of Greek and Roman astronomers. Built more models of the solar system. Their goal was to correct ancient astronomers.
Copernicus, between 1473 and 1543, was the first astronomer to develop the heliocentric model of the solar system. He also translated ancient books from the Greeks and Romans, as well as writing about economics, trigonometry, and astronomy. Copernicus wrote an outline of his theory about the sun being at the center of the solar system.
Brahe, 1546 through 1601. At age 26, he wrote a book on a new star called the Nova. King Frederick II ordered an observatory to be built that he gave to Brahe. Newton, 1643 to 1727. While at his family farm, he made discoveries in optics, universal gravitation, and invented differential calculus. He created the 3 laws of motion and is responsible for figuring out how gravity and orbits correspond in certain environments. Edmund Halley, 1656 through 1742. He wanted to record the southern stars, so he sailed to the island of St. Helena in the Atlantic. While there he recorded the positions of 341 stars as well as Mercury's transit across the sun's disk. He published Synopsis of Astronomy of Comets. Einstein, 1879 through 1955, produced articles on applying quantum theory to light to explain the photoelectric effect, existence of atoms, and ideas about space, also about light and mass and energy. E equals mc squared supported his argument in the papers. Niels Bohr, 1885 to 1962, studied the theory of tension by jets of liquid. He then moved further to develop Rutherford's discovery of atomic nucleus. Bohr successfully worked out the atomic structure of the atom, which led to the Bohr's model.
Wolfgang Pauli won a Nobel Prize for discovery of the Pauli exclusion principle. This principle states that no two electrons in an atom can occupy the same quantum state at the same time. He also hypothesized about the existence of neutrons. Born in 1901 and dying in 1976, Werner Heisenberg was a professor of physics at many universities. He was famous due to his quantum mechanics, which led to the theory of the atom. Edwin Hubble, from 1889 to 1953, he discovered the Andromeda Galaxy using the Hooker telescope. He also watched other galaxies after his discovery. He concluded that the universe expands uniformly. Georges Lemaitre, who lived from 1894 to 1966, had theorized the Big Bang Theory, and he had found solutions to Einstein's equations on relativity. Hubble also proved Lemaitre's theory about the expanding universe using light and distance. Robert Oppenheimer, 1904-1977, was a physicist who directed the Manhattan Project. He is known as the father of the atomic bomb. He advocated for disarmament after Japan's bombing. Penzias and Wilson, in 1964, they had set up map signals from the Milky Way. They discovered cosmic microwaves, which supported the Big Bang Theory even more. 1930 to the present day, Buzz Aldrin was an engineer on the Gemini 12 spacecraft, where he spent 4.5 days in space in 1966. In 1969, he served as a pilot in Apollo 12 and was the second person to step on the moon. 1930 to 2012, Neil Armstrong. He had served as a naval aviator until the early 1950s to join NASA. Then he was on Gemini 8 in 1966. He performed successfully docking in space and commanded the Apollo 2 mission and was the first person to step on the moon.